Wow. So you got a judge who is suggesting that the White House was working with big tech, the government working with big tech to limit free speech on some of the biggest social media platforms. And the Biden DOJ says, whoa, we're going to appeal this federal ruling. That's the latest on this story. By now you know what happened on Tuesday. Well, the latest in the story here is that the Justice Department is going to appeal a federal court ruling that blocked Biden administration officials from contacting social media companies because of collusion concerns. That's what the court documents show. By the way, I'm Pete Mundo in for Vince Coglianese on News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news. And this case is officially Missouri v. Biden, and I host the morning show on KCMO in Kansas City, so it's right back in our home state. That's where this case comes out of, the state of Missouri, and the Attorney General for the state of Missouri is Andrew Bailey, and he joins us here on WMAL. We had him on my show just a couple of days ago, but there's an update, of course, as I just noted, to this story. So, Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being here. How would you respond to the Biden DOJ filing an appeal in this case?
Well, we're not going to let Joe Biden destroy free speech in America. I think that people need to start asking the White House some really tough questions about, look, if you weren't doing anything wrong coordinating with social media during COVID, why are you fighting this court order? Why not let a wall of separation between tech and state be erected? If you weren't doing anything wrong, why would you care anymore? If it was just about a response to COVID, just making sure people were protected from COVID, then why does it matter now that you canceled the pandemic, that you ended the pandemic? I mean, clearly what this evidence is the fact that they don't care. They want to continue to silence opposition, and they're not going to stop absent a court order. So that's why it's so important that we keep fighting this lawsuit and pushing it forward to hold them accountable.
Were you surprised? I mean, not that you can put anything past the people in charge here, but were you even surprised, Mr. Attorney General, that there was this appeal, or did you expect this after the ruling on Tuesday?
No, I mean, first of all, we've come to expect the unexpected, and we know they're going to continue to fight it. When we went to court on May 26th, they were unrepentant in their attitude towards the First Amendment. They don't care that they violated it in the past, and they seem committed to violating it in the future, and certainly this appeal is evidence of that. They want to continue suppressing opposition speech. Anyone that disagrees with Joe Biden, they're going to say, well, that's just not truthful, and they're going to shut it down. They're going to silence it. They're going to squelch it. The whole idea behind the First Amendment is to preserve an uninhibited marketplace of ideas. We need dispute. The First Amendment invites dispute. And any government that's silencing its opposition is stilting the scales in one direction, and it creates distrust. The whole purpose of the Constitution is to protect us from the government. That's why we need our right to free speech, and Biden seems committed to stifling that speech.
You know, we've heard this from folks over the last couple of years who have said, well, if you don't like, what Facebook's doing on the free speech front, well, go make your own Facebook, go make your own Twitter, except for when Elon Musk bought it, of course. They didn't like that too much. But, that's been kind of the talking point. But this is different, right, Andrew? This is not just big tech deciding what they want to platform and what they want to deplatform. The government alleged collusion with the big tech is where this is most concerning, and that's what takes this to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's coercion and collusion. Look, from the White House lawn, President Biden said that Facebook was killing people. He called on them. He demanded that they enhance their censorship or else face his wrath in the form of an antitrust litigation and or amendment or repeal of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which has been misconstrued to allow these big tech social media platforms to monopolize the marketplace. And so that's what allows the federal government then to collude with them to suppress American voices in violation of the First Amendment. I mean, this is scary stuff. The court has said it's dystopian. It's a dystopian scenario, that it was Orwellian. The court specifically on May 26th asked the Department of Justice if they had read the book 1984 because their behavior looked a lot like the Ministry of Truth in Oceania.
Yeah, it's so true. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey is joining us on WMAL. I'm Pete Mundo in for Vince Coglianese. And the Missouri v. Biden is the official case that, of course, we're following here on this free speech issue. So what happens now when it comes to next steps? They file the appeal. What happens for you in Missouri?
Well, we anticipate they're going to ask for a stay of the trial court order, that they're going to want to prevent that injunction from going into place, again, because they're committed to future censorship of Americans' free speech rights. And let's also get one thing clear. The court has identified the only speech that was censored was conservative voices. So that's what they're going after. They're dedicated to it. They want to keep doing it. They got to stay the court order. We're going to fight that. We're going to make sure that injunction is in place. We got to keep erecting that wall of separation between tech and state. We'll get a 3-judge panel from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll be litigating the case at the Court of Appeals, and we'll keep fighting. Once it comes back to the trial court, which we are confident in our legal position and ultimate success at the Court of Appeals, we're going to go back to the trial court and do additional discovery. We've only begun to scratch the surface. We've got to root out this vast censorship enterprise and put systems in place to prevent it from interfering with the election coming up next year.
I mean, that's a great point. When you look back to 2020 and, with the New York Post, the reporting it had with the Hunter Biden laptop story, how that got deplatformed. I mean, what's to say something like that or something of that ilk could not happen again? Can this all be figured out by, fall of 24? Or like every legal process, could it take longer than it ultimately should?
Well, that's why getting the court injunction, the nationwide injunction, was so important. And what a great way to celebrate this nation's birthday than restoring our First Amendment and the legacy of freedom our founding fathers handed down to us. And so we're so excited to get that. And so that's why it's so important to keep fighting. We've got to get that wall of separation between tech and state in place to protect our election integrity in 2024. We know that Biden targets anyone that disagrees with him. We know they want to silence opposition, and they're committed to doing it again. So we believe that the injunction will be in place. We're going to keep fighting to obtain that objective and allow Americans to be able to question Joe Biden and question his policies on big tech social media free from government censorship.
What is the responsibility of the social media companies in this? I mean, can't we get on them and just say, hey, if somebody calls you from the Biden administration, the DOJ, just hang up the darn phone? I mean, do you have to take the call? What is their responsibility in all this?
Well, first of all, I think they're ideologically aligned with the left.
Yes.
So they like Joe Biden. They like his policies. So they're more than willing to march in lockstep with this army of federal bureaucrats that Biden has sent to them. But also they're being coerced. I mean, when you've got the president of the United States saying, hey, I'm going to come after you with antitrust litigation and break up your monopolies, or I'm going to repeal the very protections that prohibit private citizens from suing you, well, then all of a sudden they're going to lose their cash cow. And so of course they're going to do exactly what he says. And that's where the coercion and collusion comes into place. The mainstream legacy media, who questions whether or not the federal government's colluding with them as well. But, they're trying to spin this as, oh, well, look, this is a safety concern. Of course the government needs to be able to communicate with big tech social media. But that's not what's going on here. The evidence we've uncovered is that there was censorship of core political speech targeting one side. And it's amazing to me there's not more concern in the mainstream media, because what if the New York Times is next? One wonders if there would still be the same wailing and gnashing of the teeth if they were the ones censored.
That is so true. Now, how does your partnership with Louisiana factor into all this? I mean, it's Missouri v. Biden, but what is the Louisiana angle here?
Well, it was great to get to partner with like-minded state attorneys general. We found that there's strength in numbers when we band together, so we were proud to be able to partner with Louisiana on this case, and certainly had a favorable venue in the U.S. District Court in Louisiana, and then ultimately they're in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. There are also private plaintiffs involved here, individuals whose speech was silenced, who were deplatformed, shadow banned, de-emphasized, their privileges on big tech social media revoked at the behest of the federal government and Biden's officials. And so we have a great group of litigants here, plaintiffs pushing this lawsuit forward. We're in a good venue. And again, we're confident in our ultimate success on the merits. And that's exactly what the court order that granted the injunction says. We're likely to succeed on the merits to prove that there was a violation of the First Amendment. So there's got to be some steps taken to prevent it going forward. And again, that makes you wonder, what is the government's objective here in appealing the injunction? They're committed to violate the First Amendment going forward.
Yeah. Do you feel like you only have to prove collusion between big tech and the government, or do you also have to prove, I don't know about deplatforming maybe being the right word, but suppression of certain Facebook, Twitter, Instagram posts that may not get in line with what the government wants or this administration wants? Is it both, or is it just the former?
Well, at this point, we believe that we have put on substantial evidence to establish that there was both coercion and collusion that resulted in government-sponsored censorship. 20,000 pages of documents, numerous depositions, 155-page opinion from the judge where he lays out the evidence that we put on before him and says, hey, look, here's an email exchange from the White House to big tech social media where they say, take down that Tommy Lahren video. Here's another email where they say, take down that Tucker Carlson video. Here's another email where they say, go beyond, big tech, go beyond your own censorship policies and censor additional speech related to vaccine hesitancy. And I'm telling you, COVID was the Trojan horse that got the enemy behind the gate. COVID's over. I mean, the White House itself has ended the pandemic. And so what are they trying to censor now? I mean, we know this thing has spread and expanded. The vast censorship enterprise has grown so large that Biden's White House had to create a new bureaucratic apparatus to manage it. And so there's really serious concerns here about what speech is being censored today. That's why it is so important to keep this injunction in place and keep fighting for our right to free speech.
Well, you keep doing just that. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey in the Missouri v. Biden case on free speech. We appreciate what you're doing. Always grateful to have you on when I'm on KCMO in Kansas City. And it's great to have you on here in Washington, D.C. on WMAL. Thanks so much for being here.